So it makes me very sad that when I refresh the page, all my favorite Jeff Goldblum flicks go away. What can we do? We don't have a back end. Maybe we could save it inside the user's browser. Local storage. Who did it? All right. Andrew, I think you've talked slightly less than the other three, maybe. What's the big idea? What's local storage all about? You get 5 megabytes of storage on your app in the user's browser. Neato. Just what I've always wanted. Let's look up local storage. Read all about it. Window.local storage. Huh. Allows you to access a local storage object similar to session storage, not that we know anything about that. Local storage has no expiration time. Cool. Even after you close the browser. Should be noted that the data stored in either is specific to the protocol of the page. What's the protocol? Like HTTP? Or, in our case, we're actually using file, because we're not actually serving this from a web server. All right, let's just play around with this. Ah, dang you. Okay. Local capital S storage. Okay, it looks like that's a thing. It's got a bunch of stuff in it. I'm going to call local storage.clear. That's going to clear it out. So did I just blow away all local storage for all sites that I've ever visited? No. I access the local storage for my site. Now, since, again, I'm not really serving this from a web server, I'm serving this from my file system. That's all my local stuff for anything that's running on mine. So I did blow away some extra stuff, but that's okay. Once you're serving this from a web server, you know, that's going to be different. So how do we set things in local storage? Local storage is a lot like an object, but you can't just say local storage equals some object. And although it usually works to say local storage dot some key equals some value, that's not the right way to do it. And you can't rely on that behavior working correctly. We have a method called setItem. And then you give it the key, like fruit, and the value, an array of things like apple, banana, to get it back, local storage dot get item and the key. The string apple comma banana. It converted it to a string. Not a bad lesson for us to learn. You can only store strings in local storage, not arrays and objects and so on. Those will be converted to strings first. Now, apple banana, that's, you know, at least I can look at that and tell what the data was. But a comma-separated string is not really what I was looking for. So what if I did an object instead of an array? How would that work? Let's say let food equals this object. First key is fruit, the string apple. Next key is carb, pancake, cool. Let's say local storage that set item food and pass in that food variable. And let's get it back out. Local storage dot get item food. the string object. Really helpful. What can we do about this? Oh, we're screwed. Just can't do it. No, we can do it. What'd you do, Andrew? What? Let's try this. JSON.stringify food. What's that get us? It gets us something that looks very much like the actual code that defined that object. So at least the data is still in there somewhere in that string. But it's a string still, not an object. How could I turn that back into an object once I've stringified it? So let's say let food string equal JSON stringify food. How do I get food string back into an object? Did you do that part? Naomi? JSON.parse. You might objectify is a good verse. I mean, good verse, good guess. JSON.parse, the opposite of stringify. Take the string, turn it back into whatever it was. So JSON parse, food string, gives us back our object. What the heck is JSON? It stands for JavaScript Object Notation. What it is a data format, often used as an alternative to XML, because XML is kind of awful to read, especially. It's tag soup. Gosh darn angle brackets everywhere. For everything, you have an opening and a closing tag. It's much easier to read a flick that looks like this than one that has opening tag ID 4, closing tag ID, opening tag name, whatever, closing tag name. For a human being, that's a lot to parse. And it's a larger file, frankly, so if there's a lot of data in it, it's going to take up more bytes. And we're sending this stuff across the web to people with bad internet connections. It's called JSON, JavaScript Object Notation, because its syntax is really, really similar to how we define objects in JavaScript. In fact, I think this is true. It's certainly very close to true. All JSON we could just paste right in, and it would be valid JavaScript Object Notation. The opposite is not true, however. For example, the way we actually defined food is not valid JSON. We can turn it into valid JSON, but it's not. Because JSON has some rules. The key names must be double quoted. We can leave the quotes off the keys in JavaScript. In JSON, they're not optional. You must have quotes, and they must be double quotes. Same with the values. Must be double quoted. That's the difference that we're going to see. See? No quotes. Quotes. Knowing this, how can we get our flicks into local storage? Let's add a couple. So we have app.flicks now. How can we store those flicks in local storage? Who did it again? All right. Were you raising your hand? No. Okay. Kai, how did I get the flicks into local storage?
Whenever I added one, I just did local storage set item, then some name I did flick array, then JSON does stringify those flicks. So just every time I did something,
Okay. Try it in the console first. We can say local storage.set item. I'm just going to say flicks. And then we could say app.flicks But if we turn it into JSON first, it's going to be easier to get it back out of local storage later. Because the stringified version won't just be, apple, comma, banana. It'll be square bracket, apple, comma, banana, which when parsed would turn it back into a real array. Let's try that. Let's try local storage dot get item flicks. All right. So it's a JSON string containing those things. If we say json.parse local storage get item flicks, we actually get back the array of objects. Cool. So when do we want to call each of these things? We want to set it in local storage every time we add something new, every time the array changes, right? So here's where we add it using unshift. So we could say local storage or window.local storage dot set item flicks this dot flicks, not just this dot flicks, JSON dot stringify this dot flicks. Make sense? Don't have enough quotation or parentheses there. Does it work? Let's add a couple. The Fly, Jurassic Park, Independence Day. Let's look at local storage dot get item flicks. Yeah, it's got all three of them in there. Seems legit. By the way, if you want to inspect local storage using a slightly friendlier interface, the application tab of the developer tools shows you some stuff, including local storage, session storage, and some other stuff. And look, it'll show you scoped by site and protocol. So there we go. Flix is there. Food and fruit are still there too. So what if I don't want to clear the whole thing, but I want to get rid of those two things? We were just kidding about those. Let's get rid of food. Local storage dot maybe remove item. Ooh, yeah, it's a thing. Remove item, food. And what else? Fruit. Remove item, fruit. And it's gone. All right, so we're storing them now. We want to store them whenever the array changes. So when else does the array change? When you remove something. Right now, if I remove this and I look at local storage, it's still got all three of them. So we need to do the same thing at that point. These aren't the only two times we're going to change this. So I'm going to move that to a separate method. I'm just going to call it save. So it's going to save my data. So right after add flick, I'm going to make a method called save. And it's going to do this right here. Local storage set item. So after we call unshift, we need to make sure we also call this dot save. Is this still going to work? Is this going to be the right thing inside save? Yeah. We're just calling it like a method. Method style invocation. So this is bound to what we think it is. So we also need to call this.save when we remove. So remove it from there and update local storage. Don't have to do any special logic to remove it from local storage because we kept our array in sync. So by keeping our array in sync, all we ever have to do to update local storage is just set it again to that same thing. Let's refresh, put in a few things. I'll go ahead and clear it so we can start from scratch. All right. Thor 3. Earth girls are easy. Remove earth girls are easy. Local storage dot get item flicks. Now it's only got Thor 3 in it. So we did it. We're not loading them back yet, but we are saving them just right. I'm pretty happy about that. Save, flicks in local storage. But what we want to do is load them from local storage right at the beginning when the page loads, right? Sounds tricky. So where do you want to start that process? Where will I start writing code? In init, right? That's the thing that runs at the very beginning. This might be kind of a complicated process. I don't think I want to make init much longer. So I'm going to make another method for it called load, comma. And then I just want to call load. Excuse me. This dot load, right? So what load needs to do is get the JSON string out of local storage. Turn that into an array. And set this.flicks to that array. Get the JSON string out of local storage. How do I do it? I don't pick on you often enough, Brandon, if that is your real name. Brandon, how do I get it out of local storage? Local storage.getItem gets things out. Flicks is where we saved it. And that's going to give us a JSON string, right? Let's say const flicks string or flicks JSON or whatever you want to call it. Sure. Turn that into an array. How do I turn flicks JSON into an array? Sident. What do you think? What do you think? I've got it out of local storage, but it's still just a string. I want it to be a real array. I want to Jules? JSON parse. Opposite of stringify, JSON parse. Flicks JSON. That gives me an array. Set this dot flicks to that array. This dot flicks equals flicks array. Seems legit. Am I going to have a problem with this? How do we call load? Just with a dot. We should be good. Let's try it out. Refresh. JP2, the big chill. Oh, I don't even know what I was starting from. Look, let's clear that out first. Then do it again. JP2. Oop. Cannot read property unshift of null at app.js line 35. Okay. That happened as soon as I tried to add one. Line 35. Is this dot flicks unshift? We've done that a million times. Once again, we've been betrayed. Here, I set flicks to an empty array. It's like property shift of null. It's saying this dot flicks is null. This dot flicks is an array, gosh dang it. Do we set this dot flicks anywhere else? We do now, don't we? This dot flicks equals flicks array. Well, we don't want to do that if flicks array isn't an array. So perhaps we should say if flicks array so right now flicks array is null, and null is a falsy thing. It is false-like. Some things that are falsy in JavaScript: null, undefined, actual false, 0, empty string, empty array. There are quite a few things. So we only want to set it to that if it's a non-null thing. So let's refresh. Let's try adding one again. Okay, didn't get that error anymore. Very good. Refresh the page. It's not redrawing them, but are they there? App.flicks. They're there. Cool, they're just not on the page. I'll shut up soon, I promise. So maybe we're not quite done loading. We've set the array, but now we need to actually add them to the page, right? If only we had a method that adds those things to the page. What does add student do? Or add flick? Okay, it does some stuff with an event. It creates this thing. It unshifts. It does a whole bunch of stuff. Some of this stuff, though, is exactly what we need to do. I kind of want to change the name of this method. Like add flick via form. So change the name of it. Change our add event listener. Add flick via form. And then I want another method called just add flick that does the stuff that needs to happen both times. And then add flick should just receive the flick as its argument. So suppose we do that. What's the stuff that we need to do whether we're doing it from the form or not? We need to add it to the thing, right? Maybe. But it's already on the thing. Update local storage. Need to render the list item either way. So, okay. Maybe, okay. Let's take that out. Probably need to update the maximum value both times. And you know what? I kind of like the idea. Instead of just setting the whole array at once, what if we do that as part of add flick? Let's go ahead and do the unshift and the save inside there. So then we can replace all that stuff here with this dot add flick, passing in this flick. And then the cool thing is, I could call add flick from load, and it'll do all the same stuff. So instead of setting this dot flicks directly, we could loop over it and call add flick on all the items in that array. We could use a for loop to do that. But what's the trick we learned? If we have a function that we want to call on every item in the array, what do we use? That's right. So let's say flicks array dot map this dot add flick. Do you have a binding problem? What's this going to be inside here? It's going to be window if we don't do something. So, yep, we're going to have to bind it. We changed quite a bit there. Let's see what happens. Refresh. They're there. Refresh again. They're there in the opposite order. Refresh again. They're there in the opposite order. Because we're going through map from top to bottom, and then we're adding it to the top each time, right? There's some complicated ways we could fix this, or there's some really easy ways we can fix this. What's that? Reverse the array before we start mapping through it? Sure. Dot reverse. Then dot map. That is, yeah. There are definitely some hard ways you can do this. Refresh. Refresh again. They're staying in the same order. Let's add a new one. Refresh again. Staying in the same order. Great. Load. Flicks. From local storage. On init. It is right now. Yeah, that was a lot of stuff at once. It's the same repo, but it'll be in the notes in just a minute. Let's just look and see if we have any problems with this that you might be able to fix as your homework. All right. Let's look at our array. No, not this.flicks. App.flicks. Okay. ID of 3, ID of 1, ID of 2. Let's delete one. Let's refresh the page. Let's add another one. Earth girls are easy. Let's look at the array. App.flicks. ID 3, ID 3, ID 2. It reused an ID. Whoop-de-doo. What's the harm? Let's see what happens when we try to remove the fly. Okay, we got lucky. Oh, refresh the page. Look at that. It removed the wrong one. Or something weird happened. The fly's back and Earth girls are easier gone. So, to summarize this problem, the IDs are getting out of sync. The max, this.max, is incrementing when it shouldn't be, or something. Or not incrementing when it, I don't know, man. Something's bad. So, you should probably fix it. I'm too tired to fix it myself. Day 4 homework. Fix the issue with the flick ID values, which sometimes results in removing the wrong flick from the array. No, not that one. Gosh, cussing, dang it. Pardon my harsh language, I know, kids. Nine three nine four. Removing the wrong flick from the array, and thus from local storage. If you want. I mean, if you don't have this issue, then you don't have to do it. But make sure you don't have it. Okay, what else can we do to enhance this thing? Yeah, those IDs might be important. Because what if there's another system reading the same stuff? I don't know. So if you didn't do any of the other stuff, if you didn't make move up, move down work, make it work. Otherwise, if you want to experiment with stuff like CSS, make these buttons actually line up. That'd be nice. I'm not going to make it homework because it's totally an aesthetic thing. But if you do know CSS and just want something to practice, see if you can make those line up, so that the remove buttons are one above the other, no matter how long the name of the title is. Do you need that? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Give me a second. Again, if you didn't add the promote button, try that. Any other suggestions for how we could enhance this thing? You got a weekend ahead of you. It'd be good to practice that stuff. Add an image, yeah. You could do all kind of things to make it pretty. Is there? Okay, here's something you could do. Right now, we've got the ID and we've got the title. What if you also have the year? bonus credit. Also track the year the flick was released. So add it to the form. Make sure it gets added to the array. Make sure it's in local storage. Make sure it comes back. And I don't mean that if they type it as part of the name, it comes back. I mean stored in a separate field. Separate form field, separate thing in the array, or in the object within the array. And make sure it's still there when we reload the page. Yes, that's a really good one. Super, mega, bonus, credit. Edit the names of flicks that are already in the list. And make sure the changes persist across page loads. G. It would be nice if we could make that spans content editable somehow. If only we could make it content editable. That's the thing you should Google. Super, mega, bonus credit, hyper, fighting. Have a good weekend. All right. Go in peace.